So, it's kind of pissing down here at the moment. No riding. Good weather to do work on said bike. Said I'd do a bit of a review. So after 14 months of ownership and just under 8,500 K now. A few things that I've changed, a few things that I've upgraded, a few things that have failed, I suppose. Everyone's always asking. What's new? Suspension. Whoever your chosen suspension guru is, do it. It's well worth it. Radiators, I'm running GPI radiators, predominantly because I split a core in one of my originals. I repaired that whilst waiting for the warranty replacement. I purchased these and then eventually fitted them up using some Sabco silicone hoses. They're off a Husky. They're slightly different, whereas the standard ones just have a straight fitting off here. And not so bad on this side. If you're wondering what that is, it's just a silicone and fiberglass protection for a bit of heat management and stones and sticks and whatnot. More so heat management on the left-hand side, because as you can see, that's fairly close. The silicone hose has a few mil clearance. This obviously touches, but no melties because it's designed for heat. As I said, the Sabco hoses. With the radiators, I got the GPI silicone hoses, and actually that one fitted better than the Sabco. The Sabco was a little bit short for my liking, so I didn't fit it. Muffler wrap, again, just heat management. You got basically, I run a Safari tank, so that sits, the bottom of it's there, but also your starter motor sits right there, and I have had a starter motor fail. Mine catastrophically failed due to windings, but the brushes that sit in just in here, I've heard of some other crew who have had issues with them starting to melt and the brushes coming off and failing to work anymore. So that's designed to try and stop that. While I was doing a bit of heat management, I just had some spare leftover heat shield and shoved it on my airbox, predominantly to give a little bit of extra protection around my steg pegs from the airbox, but it also does heat. Happy days. And I ran the wrap all the way up to here. Arrow pipe, I'm on my second lot of packing. Suffice to say, 90 hours is too long, don't wait that long. The standard muffler packing in the Arrow was always quite light on through this area and would get hot. I did try and heat paint it. Suffice to say, that doesn't work worth shit. RHK pegs off a TE required a little bit of filing to get them to sit where I wanted them to, but happy days with those. Currently got a 1348 on. My other wheel, which is a Cush drive hub, when I'm doing the longer trips like I did recently, I run a 14 and that one's got a 47 on it, just because I bought a 47. I've changed out the chain guard to an AS3 item, and as you can see, it's been in service. AS3 gear lever, very happy with that. The standard one's just sits in a weird spot. It's either too tall or too low. This could do with being about maybe 10 mil longer, I suppose, but it's like half a spline out compared to the standard one, so quite happy with it. Works well. Enduro hog, just a cover, just because I was worried about rocks and stuff, although this B&B bash plate covers it quite well. It's a little bit, couple of extra screws compared to the standard SWM one, but works well. The SWM radiator guards. The advantage of the Safari tank is you've got all the side protection in the world. These do offer probably a bit more protection up front for sticks and whatnot, and some of the places I've ridden and seen where sticks poke, that's a good option. What else is news? Oh, I got a new front disc brake because I bent one, don't ask. Bark busters, awesome. Work, saved my bike when talent runs out. Up under here is my OBD2 Bluetooth. That basically gives me all my temperature readings, throttle positions, all your engine management data that it's available to read and you can't get otherwise. On the AS3 front, I run a 1.8 bar AS3 radiator cap just to slow the boiling situation down. Got a set of Pro Taper bars and RHK risers. Why? Because I crashed into someone and bent my bars and bent the top clamp, and they're all different. So this actually sits about 14 mil higher than standard, which just happens to suit me just well. AS3 clutch cover. It's light. It's billet. It's significantly stronger, but it's also slightly, ever so slightly deeper. Don't think I noticed it on the oil capacity, but there you go. Recently, literally yesterday, replaced this line here. I had always had the odd weep of oil around here, and I initially thought it was the copper washers. Turns out I was mistaken, and what highlighted it even more so to the point of replacing it was when I was in the Red Centre recently, and it was freaking cold in the mornings. The weep would start to become more of a leak. Not a high pressure leak, just enough to make, once there's dirt around, make a big mess and start me worrying. And what it was is the crimp fitting. When I took the bolt out the last time, the crimp fitting, you could actually turn it by hand, so it was loose. Once it got warm and everything expanded, it stopped leaking. What probably didn't help as well is because I knew I was going to 0 to minus temperatures, I had changed my oil from normally running 10 weight 60 to a 5 weight 50 Penrite 10 tenths racing. And obviously this at below 0 temperatures, that would have been sitting at that 5 weight, and that was just enough, small enough, thin enough oil to start pushing its way out. Cured it predominantly by just letting the bike warm up a fair bit more before I went off and started playing with the throttle. What else? Standard filter. Normally I run funnel webs, prefer them, and filter skins, but I've literally just serviced this bike completely and put a clean one on. I'm running the EJK jet kit that I got from Dave Hall via the USA Facebook page. That also comes with his power up kit comes with a 12 port injector. The standard's 4. The idea behind a 12 port is it should give you a better atomisation of your fuel, therefore a better burn, therefore more bang for your buck. I'm not chasing more horsepower, I just had it, so I put it in. Now I've got a spare injector as well. Happy days. Also have replaced fuel pump and original fuel filter, not because they failed, but because they're prone to fail. They're the same as what's used in KDMs, etc., etc. Disappointing fact with it, and it wasn't related just to my tank because I've seen it on my brother's bike as well, is the fuel filter had an awful amount of black crap in it. I can only assume that's part of the pump impeller wearing. I've put it in. I've just recently pulled that fuel pump out of my Safari tank, and suffice to say, that is clean. So happy days. I've now got 2 spares and 1 in service because I had a spare for my KDM as well, funnily enough. Another significant upgrade, thanks to Alan. Changed his fan out to a A101. The standard is A100. Same size, more current draw, more airflow. You can actually hear it when it starts running, especially with the Safari tank on it, and it does manage the temperature significantly better. What else is news? Oh, I run a small lithium battery in here, which in minus temperatures absolutely worked a charm. Holds its voltage, what are we, 13.43? Happy days. That hour meter's been on since about 4,000 something, and I've done 88k, so 88 hours. So this bike's got, as I say, just under 8,500, and it's about 180 odd hours. I don't really know because I can't make heads or tails of the freaking hour meter on that thing. It's weird. Disconnect the battery and it goes even weirder. Put the Husqvarna plastics on finally. I've had them sitting here in the shed for about a year. well, not quite a year, and changed to a Race Tech tail tidy, and went through a couple of rivers that tried to take my licence plate off. Rear suspension's been done as well. Significant improvements all around. Not massive changes in the spring weights, but massive changes in the valving, and it works for me. I'm about 80 odd kilos plus riding gear. Under the bike, that's about it, apart from the usual, which we tell everyone to do. Silicone grease. Looks dirty, looks disgusting. Pull those plugs apart and they're as clean as the day they were put together. It works. Doesn't look pretty, but it works. Yeah, that's about it. I think I have actually changed this out, this start relay. Not because the other one failed, but when the starter motor failed, it failed spectacularly. There's photos if you search, the windings failed, all sorts of things. I suspected there would have been a high current draw, so just for shits and giggles I changed it out. Other than that, I need to put this thing back together. But while I'm thinking about it, the old safari tank, something that came up the other day, and Grant was discussing it. Oops. Bit of heat management. Predominantly, this is new. I recently just put this on because my old stuff is looking, how you going, ratty. This is the exhaust side, obviously, and the exhaust does run fairly close. Again, that's why I put this here originally. I followed it on the other side. Not so much for heat management over there, but more so when I put it on and off, I tend to snag it on the edge of the radiator guards and cause it grief. So yeah, happy days. All right, so the tank's back on and we've got a brief minute of blue sky. Yeehaw. Something I didn't mention, also run the AS3 rear brake lever because it was available. AS3 brake and clutch levers, and I do like them. I don't like to use any more than 2 fingers on either clutch or brake, preferably one. So I like short levers and I like them inboard as much as I can. I'd like to be able to get the clutch in further, but the bar of the bend's messing with that, so the bend of the bar, I should say. Tyres, everyone always asks, what's your thoughts? I like these GT 216s, fatties. I'd probably be keen to try one of the Motos Enduro soft terrain fatties. Seen them running on my 6-day 1400k trip, and they, being a slightly softer compound, probably offer maybe a little bit more grip, who knows. This tyre here, that's got it, probably, it's a Motos Desert HT, it's got about 4,000 k on it. I just couldn't be bothered changing it off the rim. I haven't used it for ages, it's just back in the bike because this is the one I used on my last trip. This is my Cush Drive hub. So that hub is essentially just the same as what's on the Super Dual or the Super Motard, laced to a XL rim, and it fits. Just put the required spaces in and it works. Till you do that to yourself, straight down your shin, pretty awesome. Put that back in there. So obviously that's been in for my last run. So this tyre's got about 2,000 k on it, so that'll be good for my Simpson trip, no problems at all. Same with this chain's probably got about, I can't remember, it's got enough and it's fine. One thing that did happen, and it must have happened fairly late in my last trip, and it possibly happened when that happened, but I had lost, when I got home and cleaned the bike, I had lost that clip. Now, funnily enough, you may or may not have heard of him, a bloke by the name of Round the World Paul. He basically been travelling around the world pre-COVID, and he's back travelling around at the moment. Came up with something that it's a good idea, and I didn't do it because I couldn't be bothered. When the the quick clip came off, the actual inside link hadn't moved at all. So that's what makes me think it happened fairly late, because I hadn't noticed it prior. But when I disassemble this chain eventually, I'm going to do, as was recommended, is actually swap that link to the inside. The reason being is when this happened, is probably on rocks. Oh, not probably, was, guarantee it. And it's quite possible same rocks took that. This is the original one. I just had it sitting there, so I used it. So yeah, something to think about when you next. Personally, I've always used riv links on my race bikes, my road race bikes. I've used these quick links on mountain bikes and that. Up until that's the first time I've had an issue of any type with it. So from that perspective, happy days. I did mention I've had a couple of failures. So that was the radiator that failed, and that was my repair, and that repair was fine. That's basically just liquid steel, a 2-part epoxy, liquid steel. Put it on there. I could have done that in the field, but I was a bit too close to civilization when it happened, and I got a lift home. Thanks, Brad. It was a long day, but it was hard to find because you had to take the tank off, but to repair it, had the tank take off, so no biggie. This is the offending starter motor that failed. I can't be bothered pulling it apart. If you want to look at pictures of spectacularly failed windings, this is the bushes that, as I was saying before, sit in behind here, so when your exhaust runs straight past it. I think it was Alan that was telling me that his had started to fail, and what could possibly happen is these receding. The other thing that was, you may or might, it's a bit hard, see if we can get it. You may pick up a slightly golden colour, just more so here. It's actually oil. Excuse me. What I'll do is just drop that in there. So, if you can see that, let's get out of the light. That shouldn't be happening. So, what was happening is the oil comes out of there, up into here, but it also comes out through that little join there, and it was running down, so it looked like it was coming from the copper washers, but no cigar. So, 8,500 Ks. These are the original seals from front wheel and rear wheel, and I've only replaced these. There was nothing wrong with them, but because I had them out, I replaced them. The bearings on mine, I took some photos. Absolutely no dramas. I was actually quite surprised. The setup on the push drive hub, for those of you that don't have one, that bearing's going to be your biggest problem child, because that one sits in there, behind there, with no environmental seal other than that seal there. And as you can see, it gets bits of shit in there. But it's really easy just to get a pick and carefully take those seals out, clean and re-grease your bearings, which I have done to all of them. And suffice to say, happy days. I'm not in need. So in here, you probably can't see it. No. You can see this one. That's a black seal now. The original one was that greeny colour. And that one I didn't change, I think, because the All Balls kit I had did not have the correct seal in it. So I didn't replace that one. I popped them out. If you're careful, you can get them out and you won't damage them. We used to do this all the time at work. So it is quite easy, and it's easy to do. And as long as you don't get your high pressure washer into your bearings, that should be okay. But it doesn't hurt to check them, depending on the sort of riding you do. While I was at it, I have stripped, when I got home from my last trip, I stripped this swing arm off, checked all the swing arm bearings, pivot bearings, your idler, chain idlers, they have a good habit of seizing. And yeah, again, they're all fine and happy days. Oh, there's my, if that's going to focus, I can't see, but 58 newtons, which is 5.8 kilo. I think the standard one's 5.2. Could be wrong. The one that's most likely to wear out of these, all of your linkage bearings, is going to be that shock mount bush and bearing combination that takes the highest load. So if you're going to do anything, check that one. If you're doing that one, you're pulling the whole lot apart anyway. So just do it. It's easy, and you get to know how your bike works. It's happy days. Steg pegs, love them. Head bearings, again, I redid those. Didn't need to. Put them apart. They look like they hadn't changed since I did them the last time. I probably service my bike more than most because I can. Gives me something to do. So yeah, the reason I had the tank off today was I had a little eBay order come in, and basically, if it'll turn on, it's a little boroscope, and I don't know if that's going to show up on the video or not. Let's have a look. Whoops and whoops. There you are. Freaking sunshine and reflections. Pain in the butt. Okay, now we got it. What I'm looking for there is, you can still see all that cross-hatching. So in terms of, don't do that to you. It's a good thing it's not super expensive, and it's rugged, and it still works. So basically that's your little camera. Pull your spark plug out, stick that down the spark plug hole, work it around, have a bit of a bay peep. It has, the biggest problem with it is your focal length. You can't get too close to things, and it's kind of awkward in dark spots. But that's an 8mm camera. A smaller version might be better. Oh, speaking of tyres, that's my golden tyre. GT 333 on the back. Great tyre. It's too big for these bikes. It's a pain in the arse, but it does grip well. Of course it won't. Happy days with it, but there you go. Oh, that's my other GT 333. That's come off. I've taken it off to do the longer runs. It's got another heap of Ks in it. That's just a crap one off my old KTM 690. Stock tyres, rubbish. Shit house. Good if you're on the road. Other than that, good for nothing. Yeah, it's about it. Service-wise, so now that I've stuck my boroscope down the bore, I'm definitely not concerned about doing any major maintenance on this bike at this point in time. Valves have not moved since the first time I checked them, so they are and the first time I checked them, they were actually loose, so I'll clarify that. They were actually on the too far loose side, so I actually put them back to within spec, and they haven't moved since. I've also done two separate compression tests on this bike, and they're both around that 125, 130 PSI, which is more than fine for a stone cold, no oil on it piston on one of these. And that in combination with the valves, in combination with that boroscope, yeah, I'm thinking 16,000 to more, who knows. So yeah, I won't be doing a rebuild, and I've got a rebuild kit for it, but I won't be doing it for a while. Oh, one other failure, speaking of which, key, it's a thing. It happened to me. Sorry, I turned my camera off. Not used to doing video shit with my camera. I use this little clip as a lanyard, and I clip it to my speed sensing cable. Why? Because I can, and it's hard with one hand. But on the second last day, and this bike's been used, my actual key barrel came out, and yeah, I had a key and the key barrel flapping around down here somewhere, and yeah, a bit of a pain, but I hadn't lost it. So that's the thing. They've got a little internal star washer that holds the key barrel in, so tip for young players who haven't had this happen yet. Be careful when you pull your key out, because those barrels aren't held in by much at all. And I'd also put one of these on and just clip it, because if it does come out, at least you haven't lost it. And you can pull it apart and put it back together again. I've done so, and I think the way I've done it could have been improved. I used like a little E-clip, but it really needs a groove machined or filed into the shaft it sits on, because it just pokes in there. That barrel just sits in there. But the important thing is it works, and so does my fuel pump, seeing as I've just put it back together. And it's not leaking fuels because I put that on correctly, so that's always good. Yeah, 8,412. 170, oh, now it's different again. 170 hours. So this thing, the last time I was looking at it was like 20. Weird. 170 hours was probably pretty close. That's the time. 10K since I did my last. Just a test ride after I've done it. Shits and giggles. No. I feel like I have left something unplugged. Stop that. Right, we are back, and don't know if you can see it, but there was a second reason why I wanted to have that tank off. I was curious as to how much fuel it would actually hold. Suffice to say, I've just emptied a 20-litre jerry can in it, and it would probably take another litre. So, if I'm not mistaken, that's going to be why it didn't start. That's better. So, give myself a swift uppercut for forgetting to fill the tank up after you emptied it, twat. But there you go. So, my stickers have bubbled. Now, whether they've had some fuel on them or just didn't like the -2 degrees, I don't know. But it is what it is. They look alright from a distance. The graphics on the panels are sweet. Very happy with them. And even the fork guards. So yeah, minor detail. I nearly got to pulling the tank off before I went, hang on a minute, I couldn't smell fuel when I was cranking it. Yeah, I had emptied it. Well, there you go. 20 litres of fuel in at the moment. I'm going to weigh it actually, just for shits and giggles, because with an empty tank it weighs in just on about 131, I think, as is. That's everything you see on it currently. So, yeah. Anyway, that is a 2020 RS500 with a Safari tank on it. And people always talk about horsepower and stuff, and I am hoping, I've got to make a phone call actually, hoping to get this thing on the dyno while I'm back in Perth this time. In terms of power, yeah, you're not going to have a problem. On the road, I was riding with the whole, I was the only one not on a KTM 500. and we were overtaking some traffic, and it was in the territory, so it's all good. But let's just say I ran the throttle open on this in top gear, and I was going past said mate on his 500, who didn't see me and then put me into the bush at 130, 145 k an hour. It was pretty funny at the time, but it was all good. So yeah, engine-wise, these things are, if you can open your throttle wide on any track other than a big straight open road, more power to you. But you're not going to be lacking power. They are, if you have a look at Keith Jobson's YouTube channel, he's a dude over in Victoria, does a heap of stuff with his KTM 500. And I've got nothing against KTM 500s, apart from the fact that it's $7,000 more expensive than this. And I had a 690, which I've since sold and kept this. The KTM's about somewhere between 12 and 15 kilo lighter than this bike. Now he did, and the reason I'm saying that is he weighed his the same way I weigh mine, with the old bathroom scales, level the wheels up, drop it on, and happy days. And his was 118.5 with no fuel in it, and he's got a 17 litre IMS fuel tank, and I think he had a carbon fibre bash guard. He had, it's set up for light adventure work, not entirely dissimilar to mine. So yeah, mine weighing in at that 131. That's do the math. Happy days. So if you say between 12 and 15 kilos difference, depending on your own personal setups, there's not a lot. They definitely feel heavier when you're pushing them around, because I was moving bikes around while we were on the trip. Where the weight is, and I'm going to say the weight's all in the engine. That KTM 500 engine's freaking tiny. In fact, the latest ones, they've gotten rid of this part of the casting completely for the Kickstarter. So the 2021, I think it is, that's no longer there. All the others are the same as this, but even that casing is, and they've done this all for lightweight and racing, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, good on them. But, and they have one advantage they have that is possibly a negative to people with these bikes, is these are a close ratio gearbox, as anyone who owns one knows, which means they've got a fairly tall first gear, and then everything's really close spaced together, which is possibly quite why I had more acceleration than old mate on his 500, because I was chatting to the guys that race them, and obviously the guys I was riding with are big into Fink. The guys that own it are both top 10 finishers in Fink, and one of them's a winner, and the other one finished 9th on a DRZ 400 back in 2001-ish. As he said, that's down to local knowledge. But they're fast dudes. They build their bikes and they hire them out to guys to race. And they do modify them. They modify the suspension. They modify the ECUs, because they were having lean out, same as every bike. They, to meet emissions, they're super lean, and they were cracking pistons apparently. But one of the issues for them with the 500 is the top gear is quite a gap between 5th and 6th. So they actually run, I think you said 1450 on the back for what they do. And that's to give them a top gear that they can use. Otherwise, it's sort of not that much chop to them. Whereas for us, first gear is quite tall. So if you gear it for the slight, more single tracky stuff, like a 1350, which is fairly common, you run out of revs real fast up top if you're doing any sort of high-speed commuting. So for me, to make this the ultimate would be to put a wide ratio gearbox in it, shorten up first and open up 5th and 6th a bit, and it'd be perfect. But, whatever, not going to happen. Just something to be aware of. With the gearing I run, 1447, this thing will sit at 115, I think it was. 115 at about $7,000, something like that. But and it'll pull the lower stuff. It's just as soon as you go up snotty hills with rocks and stuff, you just got to be on the clutch a bit more. But yeah, it works. And cruising around on blacktop at 115 is boring anyway, so who gives a rat's? So yeah, happy days.